I'm very excited, and clearly I have to have Sabine do more stuff because she drew up a much bigger group.
So good morning and welcome. My name is Sabine Grant. I am the Chief Creative Officer at LSI Media and also co-founder along with my husband. And LSI Media is a digital media agency. So for the last 13 years, going on 14 now, we have been providing website design, social media marketing, graphic design, video creation, and in the last few years also AI-centered services. Anything from application building to just integrating different AI components within different government agencies or using them for reporting purposes. I am originally from Austria and arrived here at the age of 19 as an au pair, working for Austrian diplomats at the time, and then sort of got stuck and met my husband and have been living here ever since. Today we're going to talk about AI. So it's going to be an introduction, as I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with AI and what it really means and all the things you can, should, or shouldn't be doing with it. So welcome, let's get started. Again, we're going to start pretty much with the basics. Who is using AI, who is not using it? There are some different numbers as to, the percentage of the population and companies that are using it. There are estimates or guesstimates at this point, but again, it just depends on many people just really use it or still just use it as a text editor to check their documents or to create email messages and things like that. And they're just really dabbling and not going that much beyond and using really all the capabilities at this point. So again, we're going to talk in plain English here. This is an introduction, so we're not going to go too deep on any of the different models. It's not something, unless it really interests you and you really start working deeply with it, it becomes a little bit more relevant as to what to use, which model to use for what, to be most efficient and to get the best results. We're also going to look at prompt formulation a little bit as to how do you create a really good prompt so you get the best outcome for yourself and the best information. We're going to talk about creating projects within the different AI models to contain your information. And then I'm actually also going to show you a few settings at some point throughout within Claude that are good to set for yourself. So your AI will get to know you and your brand and can create content based on that. So what's AI really, right? Will it take your job? Are you not technical? Do you feel like you're not technical enough to use it? Or is it just a fad? I'm certain it is absolutely not a fad. It's here to stay. Many organizations within the last year have made a very swift move away and diminished their teams in lieu of AI. Many are also struggling because of that. Why? Because it does not fully take over one's job, but somebody who uses AI well and is proficient at it will take your job at some point, right? So it is important to stay informed and to start using it. Now this is obviously in an office setting, right? It may affect a lot of initially administrative positions. It is also affecting a lot of coding development positions because it has become very, very efficient in just writing straight up code. Any non-technical person can really write code, and it will get them 90 to 95% to their end goal of creating a website, creating an app, if they're willing to then deal with what maintenance looks like, right, and the security concerns of it. So that's as far as the job goes. Do you have to be technical? No, because you really, well, with a caveat, right? Initially, no, because you should speak to it in your natural language and ask it for what you want it to do, but in great detail, right? So what does it do? Is it super smart? Does it know everything? It knows a lot because it's being fed a lot of information, right? All of you might have heard in the news currently that companies like even Amazon and others are buying up books by the tons and ripping them apart and feeding them into their AI models, right? So, and then unfortunately destroying them, which is, sort of a negative component of the whole scenario. But yes, it has a lot of information. Yes. Yeah, if you look in the news, that is partially what's happening right now.
So that we can't get them.
Well, it depends. If they get their hands on really rare books, yeah, that is a danger, right? Wow. But that's how they feed the information into the various AI models right now to make it smart. But is it really smart? It predicts, right? So it has an algorithm built in where it will basically predict what the next word should be based on what you asked it. So it's not really fully pulling on all the world's information, but it puts the next word in place based on what makes the most sense for your topic, right? So it uses its algorithm. That's why it is really, really crucial to always check facts and sources, right? It will look so legitimate and so correct. And then when you actually look at it, the sources that it quotes might not exist at all. The statistics that it creates are not based on anything at all, right? So it is, you have to double check the work, right, if that is important to you. And then this is basically some of what I already mentioned. So it's not built to be correct, it's built to sound right and to sound confident about it. And as soon as you come back and say, is that really true? Double check your sources. It oftentimes you'll find it will say, oops, yeah, you're right, I'm sorry.
Really?
This source doesn't exist. Now the models are getting better and better and better. Absolutely, they're getting faster, right? But it is a predictive model that is data driven, but it is not always correct, right? It also doesn't know what it doesn't know. So if it hasn't been fed any of the basic information, it just will not have it, right?
I have a
So
question. Companies create their own
algorithm, yeah.
They create, because normally I was using ChatGPT, and my company has their own AI,
Yeah.
and when I put the answer of ChatGPT to the AI of the company, comes a different answer.
Yeah. A lot of companies do that for security concerns. They might even subscribe to the larger models, but keep it in-house so it does not feed the world. And I will show you a setting later on in one of them to make sure that your information doesn't get shared, right? But if it's okay, can we keep questions towards the end? It just kind of makes it a little bit easier to move. No, it's okay. Thanks, Carmen. As you can see, it also says whatever it creates, whatever it invents, looks identical to real information, right? So like I said, always double check. If you're creating reports, if you're doing research that is heavily based on survey results, data that exists, you have to double check it and just make sure it is actually accurate, right? Here's some great things to do with it, and some things where I just said, you might want to double check it, right? Now again, they have come a long way. So as an example, early, mid last year, we were trying to do a lot of calculative work, pulling information from tremendously large spreadsheets with data, trying to analyze it. It had a really hard time with that. And it came back with information that looked beautiful. And as soon as you took 30 seconds to look into it, you could see that the data was completely incorrect. It has come a long way. That is not so much the case anymore now. So again, they're constantly evolving, constantly developing. But that is, important to look into. For something like that, it's also important to choose the right AI tool, because some are better at certain things than others. So if you have very specific work to do, it is important to know which tool to best use for that purpose, right? What it's great for? creating a first draft of anything, first draft of an email, first draft of a document, even first draft of legal documents. I mean, there are specific plugins and tools you can activate now within some of the AI platforms that have a lot of that information. Anthropic, like Claude's Anthropic, has legal plugins, right? Claude has an online web version. You can also install it for desktop. And that's where you would activate these sorts of plugins. So it is great. It really is going to cut down on your expense. You create your legal documents and then just give them to your lawyer for final review. And it will save you many hours, because that's really what your lawyer is going to do. They have their own templates that they're going to customize for you. So it can save money on that side, but you cannot fully rely on it, right? Because you have to make sure whatever you create from a legal standpoint really truly also matches the state you're in and the state laws, right? I do want to say I played with an example, and Claude gave me a better result on some basic legal documents, like a will, like a trust, than a LegalZoom online. It was too generic and did not actually take the state we are living in context, so AI did a much better job. And the reason I know this is because I had an existing old document that just needed updating, and what AI created was 99% similar to what my already certified legal document stated versus what something like LegalZoom created for me. So it's a really great tool to use for certain instances if you wanted to summarize something. So a way that I use it all the time is we have client meetings, online team meetings. We record, we have a transcript. I feed the transcript to Claude and say, summarize the meeting and create the takeaways and action items for me and for my client. And it will do a beautiful job. And it will take a couple minutes for like a 1 hour meeting. So that is, a tremendous help in being able to move swiftly and track all the tasks that need to be done. What else? Brainstorming, looking for ideas, great tool, right? Explaining things simply or tidying up messy notes, again, that kind of goes back to some of what I mentioned. Having it shorten articles, like how do we now so quickly create an article to go along with a keynote or with a podcast? Well, the transcript is fed to AI, and we have it simply summarize, and it creates a beautiful article for us, right? So it's not somebody who has to then read through 15 pages of transcripts and try and summarize or try and remember from being in the meeting. So it can be an incredible tool, but you do have to check it, because it will still, even there, try to add other fabricated information that was never discussed in the meeting. So always double check. Tools. This is a short list. There are way, way, way more tools than this. ChatGPT, probably most familiar with. It was one of the first ones that was being used. Claude, made by Anthropic. This one has been in the news in the last 6 months because they initially basically said they were not going to give full access to their platform to our government to autonomously direct weapons. And so they were kicked out, and OpenAI with ChatGPT came swooping in to take over for them. Gemini is Google, so if you have a Google subscription, you'll see Gemini will pop up constantly. Copilot is Microsoft, so if you have Microsoft 365 or something, it will show up now for in your subscription for you as well. Perplexity. Perplexity is more of it's a concentration of tools. They use different tools within one platform, and they use whatever models they have access to, whatever are the newest, oftentimes not quite the very latest model, for different purposes. Perplexity is a great place to start if you have to do a lot of research, because it encompasses different models and uses different models. So it will have Claude and ChatGPT and others within Perplexity, right? So that's a great one. There are others, Grok, that's Elon Musk's. I don't have it up here. Not one I use a lot. And DeepSeek is another one that's a great, really deep research tool. I think it's also good for a lot of detailed spreadsheet work to get things done. And then there's also, if we're looking overseas now to China, there's Kimi. It's becoming a more valid competitor for us here because they do not yet have any or some of the restrictions. So I don't know if you've heard, but in the last few weeks there has been a lot of discussion around Claude and Anthropic because they have agreed to European Union laws, which means that any of the work that you do within Claude will now be watermarked going forward. And I think that started a few days ago. And when we see watermark in text and images, it is not a visible mark as you might be used to. It is hidden within the algorithm. So even if you copy your text out and paste it into a Word document, it will still be there because it has to do with how the model predicts its answers. And that can then be recognized by other tools as having been generated with AI. So you will see maybe on social media posts, it will now potentially say AI created underneath your Facebook company page or something like that. And I think on images, they're talking about a physical watermark. So that is a concern for a lot of people because it is being used widely and there's nothing you can do about it. The other major models, especially US-based models, will very likely and very shortly follow suit because everybody wants to do business in Europe. And Europe has stricter laws around privacy. If you all maybe are familiar with GDPR laws that are already very strict around what information is gathered from website visitors or anything electronically, how long it is kept, that falls into the GDPR law. They now have a similar law for AI and to identify what's created with AI. So that's something to be aware of that is happening and will happen to the major models. Grok has not agreed to it yet. And Kimi, of course, based out of China, not either. I don't know if they will or not. All models are of very similar cost. I think with most of them, you can still get a free account for personal use. And I would recommend to start there if you're using it, and use it for 2 weeks and see if you run into usage limits. With most of them, the most basic personal subscription, I think, is around $20. And that will take you quite a long way with what most people have to do unless you really start developing things, right, like applications, and you do a lot of processing of reports and stuff, okay? So those are some of the basics, right? By no means a complete list. And again, Claude, great for long writing, careful editing, report summarization, awesome. ChatGPT, every day, all around. If I have to edit an image, ChatGPT is still my go-to because it's super easy and it usually does a really good job at it. Gemini, of course, within your Google and Gmail universe, you can use it, right? Copilot. I personally do not use them as much because I just live in Claude and ChatGPT and Perplexity most of the time. Research, as I mentioned, Perplexity is a really good start. DeepSeek is also a really good one. Some of the models, now again, this is as of last month, so this has already changed. And again, there was a lot of controversy around Claude, especially last month because Claude had released a model called Fable that was all knowing and all doing. And then the government made them take it down because it said it hacked something, which was actually not true. But it's back now. It just eats up, like all the models work on tokens, right? So with your subscription, you get a certain number of tokens within a certain time frame to use up. Fable uses an extraordinary amount of tokens, so it will sap down your subscription in like no time with one task. Opus 5 is something that they also released. That's one of the more recent models. They're not sure why they went from Fable to Opus 5 because Opus 5 was an earlier one. Honestly, most of my everyday work I still do in the previous model called Sonnet 5. because it's for your everyday tasks. It's awesome, does a great job, and uses the least amount of tokens. So it makes your subscription last much longer. And again, yeah, I just talked about the different pricing models. How to talk to it. You want to type in keywords, you want to use natural language. Think of it as your assistant, right? If you have a new person joining your team, you would give them an overview, right? You will tell them, hey, this is the job you're going to do. This is how you need to do it. Here's all the information about my company or about me, whatever the case is, right? You establish your brand identity. And then you start asking your questions, right? Because if you just type in, oh, here are examples like a bakery. Oh, I'm a bakery, you know, just creating a social media post. It will create you some very general slop that has very little to do with what makes you special. So you do want to give it this information. And one way of doing that, and I'm going to quickly exit out of here and actually show you a place to do this at. So this is my Claude account. So when you come into Claude, you want to go to your settings and you want to tell it who you are, and then you want to tell it some of the basics, right? Oops. Oh, I have my mouse. Sorry, I forgot to have my mouse. So here, you want it to tell how you want it to operate, right? So it doesn't sound like an AI fully, so it starts sounding like you. Here are things that you tell it not to do. A major giveaway are these M dashes that AI puts in. These are these longer dashes. They're called M dashes. You want to tell it, don't use them. Avoid M dashes. I found, even though I have it in here, I still have to tell it every single time because it still wants to put them in. But this is where you want to tell it what it should do and what it shouldn't do, right? And then you can set your preferences. The other important place is your privacy. My recommendation, if you want to do the most you can do to keep your information is it doesn't need to know your location. So don't check that on location metadata so it can track you where you're at. And then help improve AI models. So basically all your chats, all your projects will go up into the cloud and be shared with the model so it can learn. So no to that one. I don't want you learning from my information, right? That is personal to me and my business. So that is a good place. And then also if you ever have to move from one model to another, you can export your data here. So that is something important to look at. Now since we're already here, I might be jumping ahead on the slides, but I'm going to move into first projects before we go into how to prompt. You want to create projects, right? So projects here. And you can see here, oh, IBWC presentation on AI, right? And all clients. And then you want to do your work within these projects, right? So it basically knows what you're going to be working on, right? What the outline is, so you don't have to keep telling it. So if you're using it to check website copy, right? You want to have a website project. So it learns everything about the project that you're doing. You give it basic information. You tell it this is what we're going to do. So it doesn't have to keep going back and forth, keep asking you, like, why are we doing this, right? If you do a separate chat every single time, it's not combined in one project. So if you know you have multiple tasks to do on a certain project, create a project, and then you'll have multiple chats within the project. But you can give it the overall information. You can add documents to the project itself that it will look at for every chat within that project, right? You can give it images.
Sorry.
No, most of them have that. Yeah, most of them you'll see they'll have projects or folders. You might call it a little bit different, but you should absolutely make use of that. Okay. Let's go back to our presentation. Okay. Let's talk about the prompt, right? When you create a prompt, you want to tell it who it is, right? Who is it supposed to act as? You know, is it an assistant? Is it a copywriter? Is it a web developer? Is it a coder? Is it an HTML coder? What is it? Is it you want it to be a lawyer? Do you want it to be a graphic editor? Do you want it to be a photography editor, right? You need to let it know. And then you tell it what you want it to do. And be as detailed as possible, right? That happens with the context, right? What is all the information you have around whatever you wanted to create? The format. How do you want it to give you the information back, right? If you're doing a report or document, you would say, output in Word document or PDF, right? And it will create a downloadable document. It will also create a Google document for you. So you just tell it exactly what you want. You can even create mind maps. And you can tell it, okay, create the file in this specific file format for this application so I can edit it in there, right? It can do all of that. And the limits, right? Like, how do you want it to talk? Does it need to be very professional? Does it need to be very exact, straightforward? Should it be casual, right? What's the tone? You're writing an article, what do you want the tone to be, you know? So that's all, and this is basically all within one prompt when you're asking it. You want to consider all those items. Now sometimes, you know, 2 or 3 of them are enough for what you need to do. If it's a larger project, bigger, then you want to be more detailed. Again, this is an example we already mentioned, you know, of write a social post about my bakery versus on the other side, we see, okay, you're a social media writer for a small neighborhood bakery, write 3 Instagram posts, you know, and you want to be as detailed as possible, right, on how to create your prompt to get the best result for you. An example how, you know, you don't want to go in hot with information if something upsets you, like you'd say you got a negative review. Let AI do the work, come back to it the next morning, and then review, choose the best example on how to respond, you know, to something. Again, the second message also matters. When you get your initial result and it's not quite what you were looking for, you want to give it positive guidance, right? You also want to keep your requests in the positive rather than negative, because AI is sort of like our brains. Our brain really doesn't hear no and not and don't do this. It only hears the positive that comes after. So don't stay out late. The brain hears stay out late. So you want to say come home early, right? And that's sort of like how to keep in mind, because it will honor it, but not all the time. So it's much better to say keep it short than saying don't be too long in your response, right? Or keep it to 1 or 2 paragraphs, like be specific, right, in the positive. And then also, if it's doing something completely not that you asked, like you're not happy, don't keep going in the same chat, because you're just going to end up burning tokens, because it already got it wrong and it will keep going back to that initial wrong answer. So start a new chat and clarify and be more specific, or you see how it answered the first time, make your changes to your prompt based on that, so you don't eat up all your tokens unnecessarily. Also, within one chat, you usually don't want to go above 20 questions or 20 back and forths, because at that point then it will start becoming a little more irrelevant and also eat up more tokens. It's better than to say, okay, summarize and put it into my next chat, and then start with the chat fresh and keep going from there. So you save your money and your tokens. And it stays more accurate as well in its answers. Obviously, some safekeeping. You know, you don't want to give it proprietary information, you know, anything personal, anything related to medical records or other things, legal records, right, that are specific. Don't ever accept the first draft. It usually needs more work. You want to look through it, you know, it's never good enough the first time. And if you're not happy with your brand voice, give it more information, feed it more documents that you have of what your brand sounds like, what you want it to sound like, before you accept it, kind of washing out your brand and your voice.
The whole point of it is to not use my brain.
Well, if you
I don't like it.
if you wanted to create a new one, that's one thing. But then once it creates a new brand for you, make sure it starts using that, right? And it doesn't go flat over time. Keep reminding it. I said, hey, stay on brand. Use my brand colors, use my logo. And don't fake what you don't know, right? So it's all in how sort of honest and moral you want to be. But if you create a bunch of services for your business that you have no idea on how to deliver, it will tell you generics, and then you're still going to have the problem of how am I going to deliver that service, right?
Quick question on
Yes.
that, I'm so sorry. And because my son said the other day, we were talking about this, and I'm like, I'm always asking, like, please do this, or, you know, thank you so much, like the way I do it, you know, like if I'm talking with a person, and he said, don't do that, just say it, because you're using something that I guess he was talking about the tokens maybe?
Yes. So, yeah, I saw a report some months back where in Europe, in schools, when they're allowed to use AI for certain things, you know, they're teaching the students to still use the polite language, so they learn, especially young kids. And I understand that, but your son is correct, because the more words you use that are unnecessary, it just eats up more tokens. It's more like the politeness, you know, really doesn't help you. It might make you feel good, and it will lull you into the thought that you're actually talking to a real person, which you're not, right?
Yeah.
AI is not going to be upset at you. AI is not really going to react if you curse it out, right? And say, what is this, right? There's no point to it. So yeah, he's right. Be as direct as you can, using the least amount of words, because that will save you in tokens. So yeah, absolutely correct. Projects, well, we just kind of talked about that, right? So every project has standing instructions. You tell it exactly what this project is for, what you need it to do, what you're going to do within this project. You can attach documents, you can attach images to it, so it knows this is what this is for, right? For instance, one of my projects for LSI Media was we're updating all of our policies for the website. So that's a privacy policy, terms, cookie policy, accessibility policy. I gave it what we had and told it update for today's standards, right? And the current legal situation for obviously the Commonwealth of Virginia, but also sort of like worldwide, and also specific mention for California, because California oftentimes is very separate with different laws. They're the ones who first started already instituting some AI language, so you want to address that, at least to some extent, right? So I had it update all the policies. And it's super quick work. I already had policies and made sure, and I had it look at our website and say, hey, we're using different tools, we have different integrations now, make sure that all of them are covered, right? Because you still have to address privacy, even if you just integrate Google Analytics, which every website has, right? Because you need to see who your visitors are, like what they do, how many you have. Well, that's data mining, right? So you have to address it. You have to, in your policy, say, I'm using Google Analytics, I have YouTube videos embedded, anything that is added to the website, I have a contact form that collects personal information, some more than others, right? If you have a scholarship, or if you're an organization, let's say you're a nonprofit, who has an application form that's asking for a lot of financial information, you need to make sure to disclose that. And you need to mention for how long that data is being kept, how it's kept, when it's recycled, right? All that's important. AI can do a beautiful job at that for you and maintain those policies for you going forward, right? So that's a really great example. Yeah, things that were to say, claims, phrases that aren't yours. Yeah, you know, obviously, right? And then people will do that as much or as little as they did before without AI. So, again, you know, make sure it has your brand voice. If you have multiple companies, like some people do, you want to have different projects within it that talk about the different brands, right? The replies, right? It can help you figure out what are the most common questions that my past customers had. And you can search on the internet and say, hey, what are the most common questions that customers in my industry have? Or use AI to do that research. Go into Perplexity and say, give me research, give me the best, you know, top 10 questions. Then you can create an FAQ on your website answering exactly these questions, which will help your SEO. You know, it's all connected. So, you know, obviously marketing, right? Putting it to work. Great places to start. marketing and content, admin and paperwork, that is where it's a huge help. Customer service, of course, sales. You will find most websites you go to these days will have an AI chatbot for you. It's just that. And you have to work your way through that. And it usually can't get you your answer. At least it never does for me. So then you ask it 10 times to give you a live person and you eventually get one. But that's how it is. And because it can only use what it's being fed, and if these companies are not actually feeding real questions, like an example, my air conditioning company. We have annual maintenance, right? They come twice a year, but you do have to schedule it. And they now have this nice little scheduling tool on their website, except it really just accommodates new customers and really more like an emergency setting. It doesn't have anything where I can say, I'm an existing customer, I have a maintenance agreement, or I'm renewing my maintenance agreement, I just need my scheduled fall appointment. So I still end up having to call. And I find it super annoying because I could have done the same thing online if they had just given me a couple more options, right? And then their AI could have actually handled it for me.
And then when you call, they're like, use our website.
No, well,
I didn't want to. That's
I don't know about other companies. Mine is very polite and they never say that, and you usually get a live person very quickly. But it's one of those things where I, as a consumer, I'm a little bit annoyed because this could be something that I could handle very quickly on my own if I wouldn't have to say that I'm a new customer, I have an emergency, because it's a totally different response, totally different fee schedule, right? Rather than whatever, my $250 maintenance program for the whole year, right? Whatever it looks like. So if you do use it for your business, try to be conscious of who might be coming to it. Because oftentimes it's, especially if it's something service-based on a routine basis, it's going to be more likely your existing customers than new customers, right? So make sure your AI includes that, your chatbot, right? And then you can actually truly make life easier and faster for your customer. Pictures, not just words, right? So picture editing, you have to be very specific what you want people to look like. If you don't want them editing faces, right? But maybe just the clothing and the background, which is often the case for what I use it for. The cover image was AI of me. Now, I own the dress. Did I have a picture of me in the dress? No. I took the picture from the online place I ordered it from and gave it a headshot of me and said, hey, put me in this dress. Until I realized I didn't do a good job at that because it made me like Twiggy. And I'm like, I'm not Twiggy. So I told it, I said, hey, make me look more natural, right? And I understand from the headshot I gave it, it couldn't really tell. So I was like, okay, do this weight. I'm like, nah, I look too big there. I don't like that. Like, let's take 20 pounds off. I'm okay with that. It looks close to reality. So those are fun ways to play with. I use ChatGPT for that. Even with clients' permissions on websites, when they don't have good images and it's a website that does require to show some of the real people if they received awards or team members and stuff these days, it does a very, very good job. The problem we ran into recently was that some of the pictures that came to us were already very AI overworked. So when you then try to do AI on top of it, it made it not realistic because we needed to make the backgrounds more consistent, make sure people were wearing professional clothing if they weren't, right? You don't want to have people dressed in professional office clothing, then you have one person in a nightgown, or not nightgown, but like evening gown, right, from an event. That looks funny, right, especially if you have board of directors or your executive leadership team, right? So we then go and actually look for other pictures of that person online, which usually you can find, and say, okay, this is more natural. Let's work with that and put that person in a business suit or blouse, and you want to tell it the color, and it does a decent job at it. The biggest problem that we're running into is it wants to do too much to the face, so where a person does not look like themselves anymore. And when that happens, I do what I mentioned earlier. You start a new chat. You don't keep telling it, oh no, don't do this. No, you just start a new chat because it's a lost cause. Because it will go back and still re-reference what it created for you before. So start a new one, give it slightly different directions, be more precise, and it will usually do a better job. And some days are just bad days and it just won't. Then I usually wait some hours or the next day. It will be a challenge if a picture is very grainy, because AI, when you tell it, give me a high resolution output for this, and it's a really grainy picture, it has to guess. It has to figure out how to fill in the pixels, right? And the natural setting is to make everything prettier, or whatever AI thinks is pretty, right? And so yeah, it can very quickly diverge from that to not looking fully natural, especially for somebody who never wore a lot of makeup in real life and all that. We did use it, I used it as for the picture for my own dad for the funeral, but we had a good high quality picture to work with and just really wanted the background, you know, made neutral. And I even told it, don't even change the shirt, because it was his shirt. We don't need, you know. And after multiple attempts, it did a really good job. The first attempt was it wanted to, if you don't get the result you want right away, I mean, you can give it, I might give it one try in the same chat, but if I keep getting more of what I don't want, immediately new chat and give it better and slightly different instructions, and you will have better luck most of the time. Scheduling, that's a great task. If you want to let it take over your inbox and your calendar, it can really help with that. There are also plugins, or Lucas, help me, what are they called? They're not all plugins.
Skills.
Skills, right, skills that you can install. Claude has a lot of different ones. You want to do this on the desktop version. Also note, the desktop version is a good place to start. It uses less tokens because it usually is a model behind. And it will literally save your files like directly to the output folder that you tell it to. So that's a good place for ongoing administrative repetitive tasks, to schedule them from the desktop app.
So for my out of control Outlook
Mm-hmm.
inbox, I would use the Microsoft thing instead of connecting Perplexity to.
You could do either. I mean, even with Claude, you can give you can give it access to your Microsoft account. A really great, am I still okay? A really great example is with everything downloading and dumping in the downloads folder, because most stuff is online, so you eventually end up downloading the file to use it for whatever you need to use it for. I use Cloud Desktop to clean up my downloads and organize it, and it did a great job. Like, it will identify, I told it, okay, I have files from multiple clients, please organize them in a folder, and then within the folder organize and group what makes the most sense together in a subfolder. It worked on it for, I don't know, close to an hour or so independently, because there was a lot, especially when I was moving laptops, and it did a beautiful job. And then I was able to take those folders and upload them to my SharePoint folders, and could just switch to my new laptop. Now, installing Cloud Desktop though is specific to the laptop you install it on. Okay, so you will need to perform some kind of a backup if you retire a laptop and move to a new one, because that's sort of like a new installation. So any work you've done locally, you need to bring over. Obviously, anything you did in the online, when you go to cloud.com, that's always there, right? So that is something to keep in mind. But there are some very basic repetitive tasks that are great to use in the Cloud Desktop app, and it will just run. It can run independently. They can now run in the background. With you there, not there, you know, it will just work on the tasks. Things to do if you haven't used AI yet. You know, start slow. I would even say before you pick a paid subscription, use one for a week or two, use the free models. See how far you get with it. If you continually run into usage limits, go for a $20 subscription, or whatever it is. Most of them are. I don't know, I forgot the Perplexity subscription. I don't know what their basic one is. Is it also 20? Do you remember?
For what, I'm sorry.
Perplexity subscription.
Yeah, so it was something I paid for on PayPal.
Okay.
And whatever I did on PayPal, they said 1 year free of Perplexity.
Oh, okay, so,
And so,
Yeah.
because I say I don't use coins, I don't, like, Perplexity just lets me do whatever I want.
right, well, they still have the token system, you just can't see it. They're all running it in the background
Yeah.
as
And I
they
feel
allot
like next
certain
year
usage.
They're gonna charge me hundreds of dollars for the version that I'm on. So.
Yeah, if they don't leave you grandfathered in. I mean, Claude had this whole thing because of the mess up with Fable. They gave you free usage for like a month, but then it was reduced usage, so the user community was very upset. So then they adjusted it, because they do listen to their users. And then I think up until like a day or two ago, you had like double your usage, but they're not taking that away. So you're gonna feel that. Yeah,
And this is why it's so hard.
Yeah.
I can't,
and you never really know, right? Because it doesn't show you. There are additional plugins that you can actually install, like additional applications that will give you more insight into your token usage, so you know exactly where you are. Because most of the AI language models don't really tell you. Lucas, do you remember the one that Dries is using? He has one that shows him very detailed his token usage.
Yeah, it's just like, it's a Chrome plugin.
Yeah,
for
so
Claude
there,
Insights.
look for plugins on Chrome or something like that for token insights, and that can help you if you get to that point where you need to be so granular and you want to see exactly where your tokens are going to, and why you keep running out. Week 2, get a little bit more detailed, right? Week 3, give it a real job, right? After you test, after you have projects set up, after you have your profile set up, right? Start giving it some real jobs, right? And then we learn best by teaching others, right? So you have more team members. It's always great to teach somebody else. It reinforces your knowledge and helps others. Now, next steps after that would be to start building applications, right? And that's what we're doing as a company. We have a lot of different applications and dashboards we have built, both for clients, used within our clients, both commercial and government. One that we built, for instance, has all the information about all the employees and their positions and what they're supposed to be doing. And then it also has the projects within it to keep track of, are they staying on track with what their goals are or their department's goals are? Are they working towards that? And it's an easy oversight tool for upper management, but it's also a great tool for middle management to say, hey, this is outstanding, where are we with this? What are your roadblocks, right? And it's great for weekly team meetings to then use that, say, okay, this is what we have. You can link all kinds of documents to it. Yeah, I might be able to show you, like we created our own application that we still have in testing to replace our paid subscription for social media posting to all the platforms. But we are basically including blog writing, having a full brand voice within, and being able to have workspaces for every client. Writing, of course, captions, and then directly posting to the various social media platforms. As well as directly posting blog articles from the application to a WordPress-based website. We're still going through working out some issues with it, but that's been in the works for like about a month and a half now. My husband is a huge believer in his second brain, and he had some quite expensive subscriptions to different platforms to manage his tasks and his days, because he, obviously has LSI media tasks, but he also has clients, and then he has projects for our clients' clients, which is the different government agencies at times, right? So he has a lot of things up in the air, and he uses his second brain very heavily. And when he first showed it to us, for me, it was total overwhelm, because I don't function that way. My brain doesn't function that way. But it's my husband's project, right? He works within that to keep on track with everything that he does. And it even has inspirational messages for him. It keeps him on track. He installed a point system where it tracks his progress, so it will tell him, great job if you completed whatever he set himself to do that day. So it's very all-encompassing. But those are, and then we're going into application development, right? So you're using AI to actually do coding. You may get resources from a place called GitHub. So I don't know if you've heard that. So there's Gits out there. There are basically AI modules that others have built that fulfill certain functions that you can download and install within your AI model and make it work. Be very careful though. You should make sure it is from a reputable source. It has a lot of positive reviews, right? So you don't end up installing some malware or something, because it is not controlled, okay? You go into application development, you need a backend database. That's something you can get very inexpensively done with something called Railway. So all the applications we have, yeah, I know. I just wanted to say this is advanced stuff down the road if you start building applications with it, right?
Yeah, thank you.
So obviously, 4 things to keep an eye on: your privacy, be very careful. Make sure you check your settings, whatever AI you're using, so it doesn't share your information with the model for learning purposes, right? We also have to be constantly on the lookout now with Meta, because whenever they do upgrades to Facebook or Instagram, they like to just put things in like that and turn them on for everybody. So you're not even aware that whatever you're doing on your social media platforms, or that it has if it has access to your entire image library or photo library on your phone, you can limit all that. You can say, no, only what so I'm inconveniencing myself, and I've did this for a while now, where I then have to go to manage and add specific images every single time because I'm not giving it access to my entire library. So those are things to look out for as companies like these start incorporating AI more and more. Whenever they upgrade, they will turn these on. Your iPhone, right? If you're using Siri, there is AI on it. And if you never mess with the settings, it will be on by default. I'm inconveniencing myself. I don't have Siri turned on because I don't want to listen to me all the time. And I absolutely do not have AI turned on my iPhone, because it is none of Apple's business what I do on my phone and what I have on my phone. And I'm not about to be an example for them to model their language models after my activity. It's bad enough that you hardly can avoid any of the specific custom ads, even though I have that stuff turned off as well. I know in our previous lunch meetings we're annoyed because I even turn off my photo sharing. I turn it on very specifically for 10 minutes when somebody wants to share photos with me, with an iPhone. And we did that in the restaurant last time, but I turned it right off, or I told it only for 10 minutes and then shut it down. Because if you go into a big public space and you have it turned on, somebody with not so good intentions can gain access to your phone because of that. So,
How do we do that? I want to take it.
yeah. So,
I have a
yeah.
question.
So, yes.
So for someone, I've heard this a lot, for someone who says something like, well, I don't really care if they have my data, what are they going to do with it? I have nothing to hide. What would you tell that person?
I would tell them that they're not being very smart, because you have no idea, you might not be conscious of what you're saving. So let's say you're filling out a form, you're submitting information, where you maybe have to take a picture of your driver's license or your passport. And if these models have free access to all of your images, they will have that as well. And you can count on it that somebody will use it to steal your identity. I am extra careful, and we don't even have to make this a now time political issue, where I believe it's even more important than it ever was. But it is just to keep yourself safe from hackers. You have no idea, like I see this with our websites. We recently updated our website and relaunched a whole brand new website about a month or so ago, month and a half ago. And the amount of attacks that we received the moment it went live was incredible, to the point where it slowed down our website so much because it was being hit by inappropriate login attempts, right? And the problem is, yeah, you can say, okay, hide my login page. It does not diminish the hits, the traffic to your website, right? Yeah, they might not get to a point where they can enter a username, but it does not diminish the traffic to the website, right? For instance, and we install applications that will show us. So even if you go in, like, I have literally blocked half the world from even being able to see the website. Well, it doesn't matter where they are. They get a hold of different IP addresses or come through different servers. It can come from anywhere, you know. And I find nonprofits are a huge target because they always think they can steal information. There might be donor information on the websites. Thankfully, most nonprofits that I know have external donation systems, so they have their own protection system. So really no donor or user information is kept on the website. But they're still major targets. Anybody should truly protect all their personal information as much as they can on any